Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Waiver Wire Queen. Today's episode, we are going to talk about week 2 players you should start and week 2 players you should sit. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you every week prepare and be ready to compete at the highest level against your competition. So let's talk about those players you should start. Kirk Cousins, yes. Kirk Cousins had an exceptional week 1. Talked about him early on during the offseason and preseason that he was a great steal late in your fantasy football draft. And if you drafted him, it paid off week 1 and will continue to pay off throughout the season. He has a good matchup, in my opinion, versus the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which allowed 35 points against the Detroit Lions, whose offense is probably going to be much improved this season. However, that team struggled to win one game last year, and I expected much more from the Philly defense, but they're playing against a potential playoff team in the Vikings, and Kirk Cousins is going to be looking for no other than Justin Jefferson. So you already know Justin Jefferson is a must start, but I believe this is going to be a very good matchup for Kirk Cousins. So if you have him, start him. If he's on waivers, which he shouldn't be, but if he is, by some slim chance, pick him up. Another player, quarterback you should start is Matthew Stafford. I know. Matthew Stafford had a horrible game versus the Bills. I'll say it again. The Bills' defense is arguably the best defense in the NFL. So you're coming off of elbow surgery. Not a lot going on for him during the offseason, training camp, and preseason. So it's a little rust, maybe something to do with the elbow. I do not know, but I'm going to say it was more of the Buffalo Bills defense. He has a very good matchup week 2 versus the Falcons. So if you have Matthew Stafford, start him with confidence. I don't know who McVay is going to like as the starting running back this week. I'm going to go on a limb to say it's probably going to be Henderson, since Henderson started week 1. And we all know that Cam only had, 3 carries? So I'm going to say that Henderson, if you have him, start him against the Falcons. The Rams are going to have a nice bounce back week versus the Falcons. Another quarterback you should start is Derek Carr versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals defense surprisingly was very bad. I know they're playing arguably the best quarterback in NFL and one of the top 3 quarterbacks in fantasy football, but there was just no excuse for them to give up 44 points. They don't even have Tyreek Hill on the team anymore. Pat picked them apart, over 300 yards. I mean, it was crazy. But what we do know with Derek Carr now is that he's building that rapport with Devontae Adams. And again, Waller is working himself back. I would love to see them get Hunter Renfrow a little more involved. However, I expected him to take a hit this season statistically because you have a number 1 wide receiver and Waller is back. So this would make Hunter Renfrow the 3rd option. But again, this is an appealing matchup for Derek Carr. Played solid week 1, and I expect him to have a good week in week 2. Another quarterback you should start. So yes, we're seeing this quarterback trend. Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz had a very good week 1. Surprised probably everyone. Okay. Carson Wentz has been up and down the last few years, pretty much since his MVP caliber season with the Eagles. Didn't look good last year with the Colts, the majority of the games. Wasn't expecting him to come out week 1 and light it up, but he did, okay? Let's be clear. So Carson Wentz, to me, is a must start week 2, playing the Detroit Lions, who gave up 38 points to the Eagles. Jalen Hurts ran the ball a lot. You're not going to get that from Carson Wentz. However, fantasy-wise, Hurts, he got you his points. However, he was a bit inaccurate. But I expect Carson to be a little bit more, way more accurate than Jalen Hurts versus the Lions. So if you have Carson Wentz, start him again. This is a very good matchup. DFS. It's not going to cost you a lot of money. You know, if you don't want to spend on the top tier quarterbacks, then settle for one of these guys. Cousins, Stafford, Carson. They will get you the points you need and allow you to add some other better talent at the other positions. So consider that. And then also sticking with the Commanders, Antonio Gibson, to me, he is obviously back as the RB1 for the Commanders. We know that Brian Robinson has returned to practice, so he at least is practicing again. So we still don't know exactly when he's going to return and when he is at full strength. You know, health as well. His health is the most important thing. So Antonio Gibson, to me, is a must start versus the Lions. All three running backs for the Eagles, we got Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell. They all had at least one touchdown versus the Lions. Miles Sanders looked amazing. Okay, 96 yards. He was brilliant. Okay, so what I'm saying is Antonio Gibson. Yes, start Antonio Gibson. And one of my favorite must-start players on this list is Saquon Barkley. He is back. Start him with confidence. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, should I start him? What am I going to do? Start Saquon Barkley. He's going to outperform his ADP this season. So start him. He looked amazing. Even though the offensive line at times for the Giants wasn't great week one, Saquon was on point. And you got to understand with Saquon, it's not all about just the rushing. He's going to be involved as a pass catching running back as well. So with Saquon, start him. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt looked really good. No, they looked great versus the Carolina Panthers. So I expect the same from Saquon Barkley. Another two must starts is Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy against the Houston Texans. And when I say Jerry Jeudy, because, you know, let's be clear, Denver didn't look that great, but Jerry Jeudy, took one to the house, a nice long bomb. I think they'll get better as the season goes on, but this is going to be a very good matchup. Michael Pittman just went off versus the Texans for 9 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And we already know what Taylor did, right? 161 and a touchdown. Start Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy. Javonte looked really good running the football versus Seattle. And again, Seattle, Houston, same team. I would target those two defenses this year. Another player I like this week, and he's a must start every week, is now keep in mind, these players I'm recommending you start, now understand there are players that it's a no-brainer that you should start every week. I don't care who they are playing, so I won't mention those guys, but you already know there are players who have some appealing matchups. Deebo Samuels, to me, has a very good matchup versus Seattle. Jamal Adams isn't going to be available. He's not even going to be available anymore this season due to a season-ending injury. And then also Elijah Mitchell is going to miss 2 months. I know they have Jeff Wilson in there, but I bet you Deebo Samuels is going to be involved even more so as not really a running back, but a running back. He's going to see more carries, in my opinion. So the Elijah Mitchell injury should increase the volume even more for Deebo Samuels. So That's another player you should start with confidence. Now let's talk about some players who need to be all the way at the end of your bench. Ryan Tannehill with the Titans playing the Bills. So we already know what happened week 1, Thursday night football versus the Rams. Matthew Stafford looked like the Detroit Lions Matthew Stafford year 1. Guess what? Don't start Ryan Tannehill. There's not a lot of players on the Titans I would say start. Obviously, the only player I would consider starting, and that is going to be shaky, is Derrick Henry. And after the way he looked versus the Giants, who I do believe their defense is going to be much improved this year, not enough for Derrick Henry to put up the performance he had. It wasn't that bad yardage-wise, but no touchdowns. All his touchdowns went to Dontrell Hilliard. Okay, look, that's not going to happen often. But if I had to start Derrick Henry, I would if I had no other options. But just make sure you understand that it's not going to be easy, okay? The Bills defense is beyond legit. It is beyond legit. That's all I can say. So if you do start him, just make sure that you lower your expectations, because that defense is going to finish as the number 1 defense in the NFL. And that's just what it is. Sit all Patriots offensive players versus the Steelers. And this is not all about what the Steelers were able to do to Cincinnati week 1, but they made Joe Burrow look really bad. Although Cincinnati was still in the game, so that should tell you what you need to know. However, one of the reasons why I'm saying sit all Patriots players is simply because they haven't played well in this under this new offense during training camp, during preseason, week 1. Just don't do it unless you just have no choice but to start your running backs for the Patriots. I would slightly say that is the only option for the Patriots is maybe Ramondre Stevenson, but again, he didn't look great. The whole offense just didn't look great. So it's a high risk. And when I say it's a high risk, it's a trillion times high risk. But, you know, if you hit and decide to start him, then good for you. And also Damian Harris. So it's Stevenson and Damian Harris, the only players I would say you can trust, but it's going to be so shaky that you may just want to stay away from them. If they take the approach where we're just going to run the football, we're going to just run the football, then maybe it will work. But I don't look at Stevenson or Harris as RB1 or RB2. Maybe flex worthy, and that is a huge maybe. High risk. Beware is what I would say. Beware if you start any player for the Patriots on offense. Marcus Mariota, look, it's going to be a bounce back game for the Rams defense. They looked horrible against pretty much arguably the number 1 offense in the NFL. Okay. Josh Allen. Okay. I don't think anyone is going to be, well, I'm going to say it. We're going to hope Ramsey is going to have a bounce back week. I don't believe Drake London or any of the other wide receivers are going to have the type of game that Chase had in the Super Bowl and Stephon Diggs had week 1 versus Ramsey. However, I do like Drake London, but I don't recommend starting him week 2 versus the Rams, because I expect the Rams defense to show no mercy and bounce back on a level that's going to make the Falcon fans skip and move on to 2023 season. So do not start Marcus Mariota, because again, he's just not great at the quarterback position. A lot of people who typically have him on their roster, it's not even mainly for the yardage passing wise. It's more of he may get us some yards throwing the football, and then he really is going to get us some yardage running the football. but I just don't recommend you starting him unless you just simply have no choice. Now, although I love Winston and Alvin Kamara, I just don't trust. One, I trust Winston, but I simply don't trust Alvin Kamara week 2 against the Tampa defense. And I'm talking about the run defense. Winston, I'm concerned about starting him. I do believe the Saints offense will be better than what the Cowboys showed us Sunday Night Football. I simply do believe that's going to happen because you have better weapons at the wide receiver position and more seasoned wide receivers for the Saints. Obviously, Michael Thomas is back. Landry, and then you have Chris Olave. So the Tampa secondary will not look like they did week 1, because what has been the main weakness with Tampa over the last few years? The secondary. What has been the strength? The front. So I'm saying be cautious with Alvin Kamara unless they are getting him involved, throwing him the ball, which they seem to have forgotten that is the best part of his game and his best asset. Get him the damn football. But they haven't really done that consistently or enough over since last season. So I would say be cautious with Alvin Kamara and Winston. Although I do like Winston, he has some tough games this season, but be careful starting him. I would say it's going to be shaky because if that front can get to him, if they can get to him, it's going to be a long, long day. I do not recommend. I want you to sit all Seattle Seahawks, sit Geno Smith and Rashard Penny versus the 49ers defense. The defense, for the most part, looked pretty good week 1 versus the Bears. San Francisco has a good team on both sides of the ball. They simply do. So I'm saying Geno Smith is not going to do what he did week 1 versus Denver. Obviously, the 49ers defense is 100 times better than Denver's defense. And he's not going to do that. So don't get happy. Don't get cute and start Geno Smith. And sorry to say this, I'm a big Giants fan, but I am only starting, again, Saquon Barkley. I'm sitting all of my Giants players week 2. That's it. I'm just doing it. I don't trust Daniel Jones. And then it's a crapshoot on who he's going to throw the football to. We had high hopes for Kadarius Toney, and he barely got on the football field. Richie James was on the field 70% of the time. Toney barely got on the field. No targets. 2 rushes. Is he the running back now? No. God daggone it. I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's a crapshoot. You don't know who. I will say that Daniel Jones has a great rapport with Sterling Shepard. So again, if you're looking for a wide receiver that you just want to take a chance on, then pick him up. But I'm not starting anyone unless it's Saquon Barkley. So if you were considering starting any of the other Giants players, it's a no for me. And it should be a no for you because, again, with the wide receivers, you just don't know what to expect. And that is simply what you need to understand. It. You just don't know what to expect. I would also say sit Jared Goff. Just don't do it. Playing Washington, I do believe Washington will put everything together this year. Good week 1 performance. Don't start Jared Goff. Sit all of your Jets players versus the Browns. The Browns defense is good. They kind of messed up 2 big plays versus the Panthers. They pretty much had that game under control. Sit your Jets players. Just don't even do it. Make sure you leave some comments and let me know what players you are considering starting and what players you are considering sitting week 2 in fantasy football. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which will help you weekly with waiver wire ads, start sits, some advice on trades. Make sure you are subscribed and your notifications are turned on. I will see you guys next episode on Saturday. We'll have a few more players that you should consider starting and sitting and some updates on injuries. I'll see y'all on Saturday.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.